And we are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart and co-host, Joe DeLeone. Good evening, good sir. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, Blake. I've been better, but I've somewhat moved on from yesterday. But I'm looking forward to, you want to know why I moved on? I'm looking forward to previewing this first round of the playoff and getting some expectations for what we're going to see when these teams square off.
Yeah, you look at situations, and no, I'm not talking about Tulane and Ole Miss.
Mm-mm.
Can Bama stop leaking gas? You know, the analogy that I give for Alabama tonight, Joe, when we get into this is they're taking on water, right? They're the Titanic, and they're taking on water. Can you patch this boat up quick enough? And can Oklahoma beat a good team twice? Now, Alabama just learned how difficult that is. Do they get all this influx? Does their big tight end come back? Do they get some defensive linemen back? LT Overton was injured. Ryan Williams was injured. Does this month or 2.5 weeks, really, does this 2.5 weeks prepare them to be able to come back? And it's a very great game to preview. I think Miami and Texas A&M, for what it's worth, might be one of the more intriguing games and should have been a night game in College Station. But nevertheless, my good man, we have a good old-fashioned gridiron matchup between Oregon and James Madison as the primetime game in round one.
Wait, is that the Saturday night or the Friday night game?
It's the Saturday night game. Primetime Saturday night. James Madison, the Fighting Dukes, go into Eugene, Oregon, and try to knock off Oregon.
Why was that scheduled
because
as the
TNT knows drama, which we've been getting a lot of comments on that comment. But since TNT knows drama, they get James Madison. By the way, if you're TNT, how pissed off are you that Notre Dame didn't get in over James Madison?
Well, obviously, the technically
be in Oregon. Notre Dame should be in Eugene this weekend.
That would be an electric game, and there'd be so many eyeballs on it. But instead, we're going to watch a second version of that. You remember 2 years ago when Liberty played Oregon, and everyone was saying, "Man, this Liberty team's really good. Man, they're gonna go in there and they're gonna shock."
And then they lost by 40.
Yeah, it was effortless. Yeah, that's what we're gonna get to watch.
Yes, it was pretty effortless. But I was having the conversation with my brother today. What if they do go in there and knock them off? I mean, Chaney's already in LA right now, so I do not know how much he's focused in on this game. Got an introductory press conference that's coming up, but I guess that we will speak. Speaking of Notre Dame, Joe, we got to talk about a lot in reference to Notre Dame. A lot has come out since you and I have been live last. So let's get into that. But before we do that, everyone do us a favor by hitting the like and share. Share to all those groups if you're on Facebook and to all those social media pages. If you're watching us, listening to us on YouTube, like, subscribe, notification bell wherever you listen to podcasts. Rate, review, and subscribe. Every Ruffino and Joe show is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. Download the FD Sportsbook app today. By using your mobile device, you can bet on all of these playoff games. And, Joe, by the way, I'm sure you can bet on who is going to win the Heisman Trophy. Fernando Mendoza, Diego Pavia, Jeremiah Love, and Julian Sand are the 4 finalists that are going to be up for the Heisman and in New York. So what you can do is that you can go over to our good friends over at FanDuel and place those bets. Any thoughts, questions, concerns, go to FanDuel.com/RG for more details, or you can set your preferences there as well. Joe, let's move on into it as everybody is doing us a favor and hitting the subscribe button down below because, Joe, everybody wants to hit the subscribe button down below. But Notre Dame is out of the college football playoff, and, well, they did not take this one very lightly as they are not going to be entering a bowl game, and well, their athletic director also had some very big words about into the ACC. Joe, with Notre Dame not going into the bowl game and their issues right now with the ACC, what are your general thoughts going on with Notre Dame and some of their comments post not making the college football playoff?
Blake, first of all, Andy Staples had a really, I think, good take on this of on 3, and I completely agree with is exactly in alignment with how it was reacting to everything that went down. You were just, quite frankly, you were embarrassed. You were embarrassed by being removed from the playoff field.
Yes.
You were gutted, disappointed, and everybody has been making comments about you for the past
24
weeks.
hours.
Well, before that, when the whole debate, everybody was disqualifying you, was taking shots at you. After all of this, you then have to go and play the Pop-Tart Bowl. You got to go look at that stupid Pop-Tart mascot when you had a national.
Hey, don't you dare! Don't you dare talk
no. In this context, look, I like Pop-Tarts as much as everybody does, but in this context, you thought you were going to play for a national championship, and a lot of people were saying that if there was a team that would go on a run that's not a high seed, they were projecting Notre Dame to be that team.
Yeah,
the Pop-Tart Bowl is embarrassing that would have been the option on the table. Aside from this, though, Blake, it's a lose-lose situation if you play in a bowl game, regardless of the bowl game. Over the weeks leading up to the game, it would have been nonstop commentary about them missing out on the playoff. During the game, it would have been nonstop commentary. It would have just been left and right and constantly talked about, as it's already happening right now. You're ending the narrative today, this week. The other part, though, is if you lost this game, you're not going to have Jeremiah Love. He's probably declaring for the NFL draft. If you lost this game, you would be clowned on the entire offseason. They have no right, or they have no requirement to play in a bowl game. They don't need to give ESPN, who's broadcasting whatever game that they be playing in, the benefit of their brand participating in a matchup like this. It does nothing for Notre Dame. They're completely frustrated by the outcome of this. No one is talking about all the other teams, by the way, that have opted out of their bowls. I think that this has been overblown and unfair to call them childish and for quitting. I think that is a ridiculous reaction because they are not obligated to play in a bowl game.
All right, a couple of things to that. Number one, you talked about the overall draw for ESPN. Notre Dame didn't play in enough high-level games this year in reference to draw. Like, for an example, when Notre Dame played USC this year, Vanderbilt and LSU outdrew them from a number standpoint. They just did. I mean, that's out there. You can go and find that yourself, but they did. Vanderbilt and LSU was outdrawing you at that point. I get what you're saying, that Notre Dame is still a massive brand. I'm not saying that they're not. But you didn't play down the stretch enough high-quality games for everybody, the high intensity for you and going to win in that game. That's number one. Number two, I don't think, with all due respect, you're talking about ending a narrative. And I understand ending a narrative. But you would have had 14 bowl practices for a young quarterback who struggled down the stretch. And I got to be real with you. Play in the bowl game, don't play in the bowl game. Win, lose, none of that shit really matters because bowl games can't matter, and then now when Notre Dame loses, it matters. Like my thought last year, guys, we had a fullback lining up an inside receiver at South Carolina. No, it didn't really mean a lot to me, to be blunt. And it's the same for me with Notre Dame. You don't have Jeremiah Love. I'm not weighing what you're doing right now based off of guys that had opted out.
But the general public would not have done that, though. You both know.
It is because you got 14 practices that you're missing. And by the way, you started off sluggish in a week 1 game versus Miami. CJ Carr could have used those 14 practices. You know that, and I know that. Your team, who's going to be constructed of a lot of really young players going into 2026, you have a lot of young pieces. Joe, 14 practices is 14 practices. Reps are reps are reps. So this is how it comes off to the general fan. Not saying me. This is how it comes off. It comes off as I took my bowl and I went home because I didn't get in the playoff. The MOU that they have for next year, I got to be blunt. I'm going to say it now before anything happens in the future. I think it's bullshit because I don't like AQ models for anybody. It's not Notre Dame included. You could have used the 14 practices. It looks like that you took your ball and went home when you should have used those practices for a quarterback that could take a massive leap with all of the reps that he would take in 2 weeks. By the way, your backup quarterback went in the portal. I get like a lot of the things that you're going to. But I did see the other narrative that you talked about. Other teams are opting out. Well, what other teams are opting out and what are they going through versus what Notre Dame's going through? Auburn doesn't go to a bowl game. They don't have a staff. They legitimately do not have an offensive staff. So them opting out of a bowl game is a lot different than Notre Dame. So I look at this and say, listen, I don't mind that you're not playing really because I understand it. I don't like it at all because your quarterback could have used those 14 practices. And that's the part that I'm trying. It looks worse that you're saying, you know what? You're going to keep us out? Well, then we're going to make a statement. What statement is it? What's your
we're not obligated to just sit there and smile after we got
hold on.
pushed out.
Okay.
That's what the statement is. We're not going to play your stupid games, and we're just going to stay out of this.
Here's the problem I have with that. Georgia, who didn't lose a game for 3 years damn near, lost one game and got pushed out in the 14 model. They did. And they didn't take their ball and go home. They did.
That was in the 14 model, though.
And Florida State didn't go home with everybody that opted out. They went and got their practices in. And I got to be real with you. I don't think this is coming from Marcus Freeman. I really don't. I think it's coming from higher ups than him in reference to it. You mean to tell me that Marcus Freeman, a head coach of Notre Dame?
It was Bavacqua. It absolutely was
right.
Bavacqua.
So you mean to tell me that he doesn't want his quarterback getting those reps? And that is what's not being talked about here either.
Okay.
Like, we got on the field stuff that he's got to get better at too.
I don't disagree. The one issue that I don't like about this is you're correct. I would have liked that they would have had the practices because having those extra practices is impactful for teams. It allows teams to be able to get extra work in, especially with young guys. The only thing, though, with you bringing up Georgia, Florida State, that was the Orange Bowl. That was you get to play in the Orange Bowl.
But you had a team at Georgia who's coming off back-to-back national title wins and doesn't back down from competition.
But they're not backing down from competition, Blake. My issue is that outside of the New Year's Six Bowls, now that they're a part of the playoff, obviously have even more importance. Those games are premier games to get an opportunity to play in. Mm-hmm. Everybody talks about across college football how the rest of the bowl games mean nothing. And I really hate that all the Notre Dame haters in this circumstance are riled up and saying, oh my God, how dare you think that you're too good to play in a bowl game? Now suddenly it matters. I know that you're not one of these people, but now suddenly bowl games, the Pop-Tart Bowl has so much importance that you have to show up and play in that game. That's where I take issue with those that are objecting to it. I agree with the point that you made. The practice thing is a very, very good point to bring up. And
it's a massive deal.
And it's one that I can't argue with. But I hate this framing of how it is some sort of violation of college football to not go and stand there while there's a stupid Pop-Tart mascot being ripped apart after the game.
If you talk about the Pop-Tart,
I'm going to keep calling it stupid.
I swear to God, I'm going to come through this camera and just strangle you. Do the ReliaQuest Bowl. Stop talking about the Pop-Tart Bowl.
Oh, real exciting.
To be protected at all costs. Okay, we don't talk about brown cinnamon like that. Okay, that's number one. Number two. Look, I get where you're coming from. If you're Notre Dame, I get it. You should not be. You should. But here's another thing. I got to be real with you. The narrative that's coming out of Notre Dame, like I sent you a clip, and we're not going to talk about who it came from, bro. You're trying to compare yourself to Alabama and not getting in. It's not Alabama that you should be having the argument about. You should not be having that argument. Your argument should be about this G5 qualifier or the five highest ranked conference champions getting in, which, by the way, again, I'm going to say this. Joe, we talked about this in the offseason, and I got laughed at by Notre Dame fans. You got left out because you weren't in a conference. And I know that we're going to get to this ACC thing, which is kind of where I'm leaning into this, but you did. You literally did. Like, you can blame Bama. You can blame Miami. You can blame all of those things. But when it came down to the two final spots, it's because of what the playoff did. I'm not saying I agree with it, but going out there and trying to compare resumes with Alabama is by far the dumbest argument that you can make. It is. You cannot go out there and make the argument with Bama and say to yourself, they had the sixth toughest strength of schedule and played 7 out of the last 8 weeks ranked opponents, then went and played Georgia again. Nobody has a better win in the country right now on the road in Athens and taking them down. And if you're going to go out there, if you're a Notre Dame fan, saying that Miami, Missouri and Navy are comparable opponents. Oh my God. So like the MOU, all these automatic qualifiers, I don't agree with anyway. Stop comparing yourself to Bama because it's a dumb argument.
The one I don't like that you threw in there, the conference aspect of this, that they needed to be in a conference.
But hold on.
Wait. Ole Miss, Oklahoma, Oregon, and I'm probably missing other teams off the top of my head, didn't play in their conference championship game.
No, but
why is Notre Dame obligated to be in a conference?
Because they also went up and being in a conference, whether it be the Big Ten or the SEC. How many ranked teams in the last month did Ole Miss face?
Not that many.
They faced Georgia. They faced whom else?
I think that
Oklahoma. Hold on. They beat
Georgia and Oklahoma.
They went into Oklahoma and beat the shit out of them.
Yeah, but the rest of their schedule was the back end of the SEC.
What's the rest of your schedule? So you're going.
It's really not that far off. I mean,
you're talking about that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about Ole Miss, Oregon, or Oklahoma. I'm talking about James Madison and Tulane.
Got
in because it was the 5 highest conference champions. You got beat out by 2 G6 champions. It's not about the SEC Big Ten. That's what people don't understand. Because of the situation of 5 highest ranked conference champions get in. 2 of them don't belong there. That is the qualifier of it. Now you have this MOU, which I think is stupid. So if you're in the top 12, you have an automatic spot. Like I think that's dumb in and of itself too.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If you're in the top 12, which this year was a very specific situation with the head-to-head that impacted that. If you're in the top 12, you're one of the best teams in college football.
But it's not specific because you have Clemson doing the same thing last year. It's not really specific. We've had back-to-back years of this happening. So again, until you get rid of automatic qualifiers, this is going to continue to happen. But to the point of the conference, I know that Notre Dame came out and had a lot of really big conversations in reference to the ACC. I guess, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Notre Dame needs to remove itself from their partnership with the ACC, and they need to completely remove themselves from the ACC and all their other sports. Like, it actually, here's what we need to be talking about. Forget Notre Dame needs to go to conference. Their association with the ACC is what held them back because they're forced to play this schedule of ACC opponents, and they're dished playing the shit teams in the conference. That, to me, is what has negatively impacted their schedule. And if you recall at the beginning of the year, one of the things that was brought up is that apparently Notre Dame was given the go-ahead on being direct about scheduling which ACC teams that they wanted because they recognize they don't get anything out of squaring off with NC State. They would much rather, because of the viewership that would come from it, play Florida State, play Miami, play Clemson every single year. And if they're able to do that, they would have one of the best resumes. If they won all those games, they'd have one of the best resumes in the playoff field, not in this year specifically, but like in the future when those teams are all competitive. Blake, at the end of the day, being associated with the ACC has only hurt Notre Dame, and it has only helped the ACC because a lot of their mediocre teams have had opportunities to square off with Notre Dame to get revenue off of those matchups and also to bolster their resumes. Like, they have no reason.
They get NBC revenue?
Not when the games are, well, you get money from the gate, and then you also get for when the game is on ESPN. When Notre Dame travels to play NC State, that is a game that packs out the stadium. Like, I remember a couple of years ago when Notre Dame played Louisville, the stadium was packed to the brim. It was one of the most packed games that Louisville has had. It is a massive attraction when Notre Dame shows up to play against you.
I completely agree with that.
Blake, I think that Notre Dame needs to explore opportunities with doing something similar with the Big Ten and the SEC. And I think that both the Big Ten and the SEC would recognize that there is a big financial benefit from this if they were able to work something out. I don't know what that looks like. But Blake, for them, the ACC to have publicly advocated on their social media channels that Miami deserved it more than Notre Dame did is absolute bullshit for a brand that you're supposed to have a business partnership with that is supposed to be important to your whole entire branding and your conference.
The problem I have with that is that you're not in their conference and Miami is. And it's their duty and obligation. Hold on.
But they didn't need to compare them.
But they did, because the committee made them compare. The committee literally made them compare when they put them side by side and one team had a head-to-head win. They did compare them. And Hunter Yurachek said that we didn't have conversations about them 2 weeks ago. It's the ACC's obligation. And by the way, no one made you go into a partnership with the ACC more than you did. You also agreed to that contract with the ACC to do it.
But that's not in the contract that you're getting hung out to dry by a business partner. Like that, they're still partnered with them. They're a member of the ACC and all their other sports.
Let me tell you something else. If the Big Ten and the SEC are in the same situation, they're going to hang you out to dry too. Their obligation is in reference to the teams that are in their conference. So going to the Big Ten and going to the SEC, do you really think the SEC is going to go over you versus Alabama? If that would have been the final destination, who do you think that they're going to tell to put in?
You don't need to go around, though, making public statements on social media, posting about. Yeah, I don't think that the SEC vocal in doing that this week. I didn't see them doing that.
They literally were playing all Alabama games. Yeah.
Blake, yeah,
they played the Georgia Alabama game over and over again.
Completely different way that the ACC should have gone about this. They did not need to directly signal out Notre Dame as a way of advocating for Miami. The ACC, the conference, not Miami.
Okay, but you also benefited from that same schedule a year ago when you got to a national title. So it can be beneficial for you one year and then non-beneficial for you the next. It's not how this works.
Sure,
and by the way, Joe, with all due respect, you've not cracked the top 30 of strength of schedule. In the last 2 years,
you're forced to play these shit ACC teams.
Okay, then leave. We're joining a conference. Then join a conference.
They're not. They don't have to join a conference. Hey, well, they're never going to join a conference.
Leave the ACC, by all means, do it. But let me tell you what the SEC and Big Ten aren't going to do. They're not going to be able to play you in the months of October and November, because all of those games are conference games now. So you're shit out of luck. So who are you going to
required to be in October and November? Are those games?
Everybody bitched about the SEC playing the Citadel in the last week or 2 weeks before the last game, and now you have 9 conference games. And by the way, you got to play. Hold on one second. You got to play a 10th Power 4 team. You have 9 conference games.
Okay.
So how is the Big Ten and the SEC going to do that?
I would think that the idea would be counting that games towards a conference game. If I call,
no, I'm talking about Notre Dame scheduling. How are you going to get past without a partnership? Because you're not. Because from week 10 to week 12, or from week 8 to week 12, the Big Ten and the SEC are all playing conference games. So either the SEC and Big Ten are going to completely change their schedules because of you in a partnership and do what the ACC did, which, by the way, they don't need. The SEC doesn't need Notre Dame. And with all due respect, neither does the Big Ten.
No. Come on, man. But I don't like the framing of that. They obviously don't need Notre Dame. But, Blake, any business person would acknowledge that the combination of Notre Dame's branding facing off with
the SEC
getting to face Alabama or Auburn or LSU or Oklahoma or Texas.
Joe, the top 10
they don't need to. That's such a stubborn way of looking at
I'm glad you asked. 8 of the 10 most watched games this year come from the SEC.
The Big Ten actively when the last round of realignment, it was talked about how the Big I understand. Okay, I understand that, but you said that the Big Ten also doesn't need them. The Big Ten was talked about desperately wanting Notre Dame. The way that you get Notre Dame is that you convince them to do this partnership, and then eventually they fully join the conference.
Take them, join, but they're
not going to join the Big Ten full time.
Okay,
they don't need
here's the thing: Notre Dame. Fans, media, whatever, you're going to have to swallow this pill. You got left out. Yes, you did. You literally got left out because it was the 5 highest ranked conference champions. You literally did. With all due respect, yes, you did. And until you swallow that pill, you're not going to understand what just happened to you. Denial.
No, I understand what just happened to us. We didn't need to be in a conference. We didn't need to be in a conference championship game.
And
it hurt our chances, but we don't need to be in one.
Telling you that you did.
It wasn't the sole reason why it got removed.
Altered. Let me tell you who else altered everything. The SEC and Big Ten altered because of the playoff, and you think because we're Notre Dame, we don't have to, and we get special treatment. The MOU is bullshit. You do not deserve to continue to have that low of a strength of schedule and have an MOU. You don't, because you're no better than Tulane. You're no better than James Madison. If you do get that.
Okay, no. Hold on. That is, I don't like you framing it like that. That we're no better than Tulane or JMU. That's ridiculous.
It's the same thing.
They're playing significantly harder schedules than those teams.
Okay, so you mean to tell me that Alabama going into Tennessee with 102,000 screaming fans is like going on the road to Navy?
No, you just compared that. You didn't just compare Notre Dame to Alabama. You just compared Notre Dame to JMU and Tulane.
It's the same thing because
no, it's not.
Joe, if you're not winning a conference championship, if you're not playing that week, you have a team that's going through more than you do. And then when you have a weaker strength of schedule than those teams do, yes, you're not going through the same thing. You're not. I'm sorry to tell you.
You're obviously not going to do the same thing as the teams in conferences, but I don't like you framing it as they're basically like JMU and Tulane. That is not a fair way to put it.
Tulane and JMU going through the same thing as the teams in the SEC and Big Ten. When you got 11 teams at the top 15 strength of schedule, no, you're not going through the same thing as the SEC. Like I look at Tennessee, everybody clowned on Tennessee this year. All 4 of their losses came to playoff teams. LSU had 5 losses this year. 4 of them came to playoff teams, and then the number 14 team in Vanderbilt. You're not going through the same things. Okay. So you look at these teams and you say to yourself, what is going on?
Blake, I'm going to repeat what I said earlier, though. The general claim of attacking Notre Dame for not having a good strength of schedule, I think is an unfair assertion because, again, they were obligated to play and rotate playing the ass teams in the ACC. Well, I don't know what else they're expected to do because, with the remaining open spaces, they were willing to schedule Texas A&M and Miami. In the future, they're going to play. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about right now. In the future, they have matchups with Alabama, and they have matchups with Texas. They have played Ohio State. Blake, are they supposed to play Alabama 12 times in order for this to look competitive?
No,
I don't understand what more
to do. You're not supposed to get an MOU and constantly have one of the weakest strength of schedules of all the top 12 teams.
They have a stronger strength of schedule typically than the ACC teams do, and it's usually not far off from the Big 12 teams.
Okay, so you're right there with them. So now you get another special treatment order of an MOU that if you're in the top 12 with a weaker strength of schedule, I mean, Joe, I got to be real with you, and I got to be blunt with you. I think Texas deserved to be in more than some other teams that are in there too. I do.
Don't lose to Florida. How many times we got to have
this conversation? Don't lose to Northern Illinois.
That was last year.
I don't
to a national championship.
I don't care when it is. But when you do something that, Joe, you couldn't do something that Texas did. Texas manhandled A&M and you lost. Games on the field got to matter. Resumes have got to matter. I know we weren't supposed to spend this much time on Notre Dame, but here we are. They got to matter.
We should probably move on because we're just going to end up having the same argument over and over again.
Speaking of the SEC, whoa, shit. It was Oklahoma and Bama first. Joe, a rematch in the SEC, Oklahoma versus Alabama. The Tide traveled to Oklahoma in the round 1 match-off. Seems like Bama is leaking a little bit of gas here down the stretch. Oklahoma, over the last month, went against 3 ranked opponents, was able to beat them, and then close out the season beating LSU, and they have a first-round playoff game in Norman. When you preview, a game that has already happened before, how do you see Oklahoma and Bama playing out in part 2?
Alabama is a 1.5-point favorite, by the way, over at FanDuel. Blake, I've been really grappling with this one. This is the one game it's going to be really hard to pick a winner. And I don't know if I'm going to be direct in picking one, but I lean towards Oklahoma. And I think that there's very solid reasoning for this discussion. Like, Alabama is equipped and capable of capitalizing on some of the weaknesses that Oklahoma has. If you recall back to the preview that we did, we highlighted those situations. We highlighted how Oklahoma in games was susceptible to giving up big plays to athletic receivers like they did against Tennessee. But Alabama didn't do that. Alabama struggled mightily. And I would even argue I've seen regression since the Oklahoma game for this Alabama team. Blake, I want to buy in on Alabama. I think it'd be a really cool story if Alabama just locked in and figured itself out and went on a run and pulled a Ohio State like they did last year and shock everyone. But I see a team that we don't even know if Jam Miller's coming back. You can't run the ball. Not being able to run the ball and control the pace of the game cost you the last time that you played. You're going up against a team that is number 2 in the country in EPA per rush allowed. This Oklahoma front seven got your ass the first time. Your offensive line has been inconsistent, and it struggled going up against a relentless group of pass rushers that you saw the first time that you played them. Blake, on top of this game being in Norman is huge as well. I really, really think that this game is going to be it's going to be tight, just like it was the first time. If Oklahoma can be a little bit more successful on offense, I feel like they're going to win this game.
Seems like a tall task for Oklahoma to get better offensively when they've also been leaking gas from their car. I mean, listen, here's the thing with Oklahoma. You know, the funny thing, I was watching the Big Ten title game, and I heard Joel Klatt say, well, this is a great game because it's a defensive struggle. And I'm like, I wonder what Oklahoma fans feel right now. But because their games aren't sexy. But at the same time, you can have a 13-10 win, and it's all of a sudden a great game. It's neither here nor there. Joe, is this Bama team going to be healthy at all? Like, I look at this and say, are they going to be able to block? Are they going to be able to be healthy? Do you get your tight end back? What is the status of Jam Miller? Who is Ryan Williams? Because right now, Ryan Williams is not the best receiver. He's not the best player on your team. Jeremy Bernard is. I don't know what to make of Alabama with all the injuries. I don't know what to make of them if Jam Miller's not there. Joe, they can't run the ball, and this is just a horrible matchup going into Norman and being able to try to take on a team that not only manhandled you the first time, but that you could not consistently take over at home. The thing that I've been thinking about all day in this game is you're facing them again. And how do you react to facing off against them again? I also look at this in another note. Joe, you had a 7-5 team the last time that we saw Oklahoma play. LSU did a lot of really good things against them. I mean, they couldn't move the ball. They had 4 straight 3-and-outs. I mean, basically, Harold Perkins had the game of his life yet again. Mansour DeLane's all over the field. DJ Pickett is catching interceptions. John Mateer threw 3 picks and made horrible decisions against a secondary, which, by the way, Bama's secondary is not bad at all. The question is going to come down in this game, who offensively can actually get to 17 points? I mean, I hate to say it like that, but that's what it very well might take. And the question is who do you trust in more to get to that number the quickest to be able to win this football game? Because I don't trust either offense right now to be able to sustain. Neither team can run the ball for what it's worth. Oklahoma is 106th in rushing, and Alabama is 116th. And if Jam Miller is back, I do think that Bama's better at running the football than Oklahoma is.
I agree with that because I think that the Alabama offensive line, when it's playing at its best, is significantly better than Oklahoma. It's just a result, by the way. Oklahoma's got a lot of freshmen on their offensive line. There's going to be a lot more variance than that. Like, this is kind of the way that I map this out. Sometimes when you break down games, it can be just as simple as this. Alabama's offense at its best is better than Oklahoma's offense.
Agreed.
Oklahoma's defense at its best is better than Alabama's defense when they're playing their best ball. I think that's what makes this conversation complicated to really fully frame on who has the best chance of winning, because forget for just 2 seconds here, it felt like it was such a doomsday spot for Alabama when they lost to Oklahoma. And I feel like Oklahoma fans were really proud of that moment to win that game and effectively punch their ticket to the playoff. But here's the reality with this, though. The margins were really damn close the first time that they played.
Mm-hmm.
With things being as tight as they were the first time that they played, it means there's an opportunity for whoever prepares the best, whoever is the most locked in and executes the best in the tight moments, comes out as the victor. That's why it almost, with a 1.5 point line on FanDuel, it almost feels silly to try and sit here and predict, even though that we kind of are, who wins, because it could go either way. Blake, I think that you bring up the really important part about this. As much as we've been critical of Alabama, a lot of people are being critical of Alabama. Oklahoma has their own problems. And I think a lot of people are forgetting about that. A lot of people forget about that. They can't move the ball on offense right now consistently. Here's the separation point.
Sorry.
I was just going to say the separation point is, though, Oklahoma's defense creates significantly more havoc plays in games in my eyes. They have more tackles for loss, more forced fumbles, more interceptions. And then outside of that, they are better on special teams. So that could be that little margin that helps Oklahoma win.
See, this isn't a little margin. Which quarterback plays the cleanest? Because Ty Simpson got rocked. I mean, against Georgia, I think Georgia's kind of a little bit more in their zone than maybe Oklahoma is. But, Joe, the last time I saw John Mateer is literally more than maybe most, in the sense of that I got to see him up close and personal. He was making bad decision after bad decision after bad decision. Joe, LSU played man and they played quarters. They did nothing. They did nothing. And I mean absolutely nothing special. I mean, they would go. I mean, I don't think Blake Baker would ever admit this, but and I don't know the cause. They ran 3 different plays, and John Mateer continued to get confused. It's not that Ty Simpson, who, by the way, has kind of been a little bit more turnover prone in the last month of November and last week, he's also been the same. But John Mateer's been a lot of the same too. And I do wonder if there's something that Alabama can capitalize on if Oklahoma does the same exact thing that they did at LSU a couple of weeks ago. Bama's going to find a way to win this football game. You can't turn the ball over against them. I know that Bama's got their own problems, but you keep turning the ball over and a better offensive team, not named LSU, comes into your building, they're going to beat you. And by the way, third time could be a charm. You lost to him last year. You lost to him this year. Is third time the charm? Or does Kalen?
It just happened with Georgia. It
just literally happened to Georgia last week. Or does Kalen DeBoer have an Alabama or Oklahoma problem? If I'm Kalen DeBoer, I'm looking my team in the face and saying, guys, Georgia just beat you for the first time in the last 3 matchups. You're going to go into Norman. And by the way, you had to go into Atlanta or Georgia twice. They went to Atlanta twice this year. I think the health, quite honestly, which is where their health problems started, was around the Oklahoma game. If they're healthy within the next 2.5 weeks, can they find a way to win? Listen, this Oklahoma defense is stellar. They've been really good over the last month. You can make the argument they've been the best defense in the country over the last month. But I just don't trust what they're doing offensively at all. If Alabama can limit the big plays from Satania, if they can limit some of the big plays of what they've been hitting, Oklahoma's not going to be able to move the ball either. And that has been a massive problem. And if John Mateer doesn't find open ground, I mean, that is what their offense has been. But if he doesn't clean up the mistakes too, Bama, you can't keep giving Alabama those chances because they're going to beat you.
I also would add in here, last thing for me, I think that Kalen DeBoer has always done a tremendous job when he understood that he needs to win a game. Mm-hmm. Like when a game matters the most, it feels as though that they have been the most prepared. They lost to Florida State at the beginning of the year, and everything looked really bleak. Everybody checked out on them, and they were able to beat Georgia. Nobody thought that they had a chance against Georgia. I know that kind of went in reverse in the SEC championship game, but I feel like DeBoer is the type of coach that could put together one of his best game plans and then lay an egg the next round. That's where Alabama could end up being dangerous, is he and Grubb and everything just flows offensively and they get back into their rhythm. maybe there is some sort of Ohio State effect here. Maybe there is some sort of, we are having a lot of issues and we need to lock in. And when you lock in and you get back to that version of yourself from earlier in the year, you go on a run. But it all starts with execution against a really, really good defense.
Well, and you got to get healthy, and there's nothing you can do with that other than time. I mean, they're really beat up, and that's why they've been taking on a lot of water here. All right, let's move on. Joe, Miami finds themselves in the playoff, and I'd be remiss not to say congratulations, my good sir. Our good friend Joe here was on the Miami hype video getting into the playoff.
Yeah, nobody could convince me that wasn't a troll job. No one can convince me that they didn't do that on purpose, because that was from months ago, that clip. That clip was from months ago.
Joe, that's from 3 months ago.
That was from the beginning of the season.
Yes,
that guy went dug that up from the beginning of the year to pull a clip of me talking about how much I loved Miami. Thanks.
Pretty much. But Miami finds themselves in the playoffs against Texas A&M. When you preview Miami taking on the Aggies, what are your thoughts?
Blake, I am really interested in this game. I am so fired up for this game because I think that this creates a matchup where both teams have intriguing strengths against one another, as well as weaknesses that could end up hurting them. And what I mean by this, we have in this battle, both teams' strengths are going head-to-head with their opponent's strengths. Miami's offensive line, tremendous. It's had a couple of down games, but it is a big physical group going up against a pass rush that has gotten after every quarterback that they've faced. Cassius Howell has played unbelievably well, and he is not the only guy that is produced. And the other side of this, you've got the Texas A&M offensive line that's one of the best in the country as well, going up against Mesidor and Ruben Bain and their relentless attack. But where this game gets interesting, and along the lines of scrimmage, it's going to be really fun to watch that battle go down. You have a Miami secondary that has been susceptible to giving up big plays to opposing receivers, especially in the games that you lost. You gave up 136 yards to Cristobal. You gave 136 yards up to the other Jordan Hudson. Those games against good receivers, you played poorly. You have to now prepare to go up against Mario Craver and Casey Concepcion, who are cooking every single secondary that they've seen. But on the other side of this, Blake, my last part here, Miami runs the ball really well. When they run the ball at their best, they are hard to stop. Texas A&M has a really bad run defense at the current moment, like we saw against Texas, 84th in the country in EPA per rush allowed. Like, I think that this game has so many different tipping points, and I think it's going to be a real hard-nosed battle.
You know, you bring up so that was my initial take. Miami's had a problem in the two losses that they had this year with bona fide wide receivers. When those bona fide receivers go up against you, and Chris Bell, who had 136 and 2 touchdowns, and Hudson that had 11 catches for 136 yards. I understand that you have injuries, you have issues, and I get all of that. But now you're going up against two. And Mario Craver and Casey Concepcion can flat out eat. And they're going to eat. My question is how – this is going to come off wrong. Is Marcel Reed going to turn the ball over? Because that has been the biggest issue with them. It's not been how physical they are along the line of scrimmage. Everybody points to their run defense. All these different quote-unquote issues with A&M. Their biggest problem has been Marcel Reed's turnovers. And if they can eliminate that, they're going to continue to find ways to be able to hit Casey Concepcion, Mario Craver, Terry Bussey, etc. I think the blueprint, for what it's worth, has been laid out for Miami on how to beat them. But Texas also showed you the blueprint on how to beat A&M. They gave it to Wisner, and they ran the football all over A&M. Can you use the physicality, which is your strength, your offensive line, which you believe is your strength, your power running game, which you think is your strength, and do exactly what Texas did? Because they're the two blueprints to beat both of these teams. Both of them have advantages. Where A&M has the advantage of them having bona fide receivers and Miami having struggles at stopping bona fide receivers. and in a physical run game that A&M couldn't slow down versus Texas, who, by the way, Texas couldn't run the ball. But they decided to line up and hand it off to Wisner and say, get out of the way, move, get out the way, like it's a ludicrous song. And no, we're not talking about housewife and the hose, hashtag Lane Kiffin. What we're talking about is both of your strengths are going up against both of the weaknesses. Who's going to prevail in it? Yep. Whoever prevails in that is going to win. However, Joe, this Miami rushing attack has been slowing down some the last couple of weeks. They're 77th in the country in rushing offense. Are you going to be able to have enough explosive plays? I'm not saying that you're not physical, but are you going to have enough explosive plays? Because if you play in a phone booth with A&M, that's exactly what they want. Where has the running game issues been for A&M? It's been when teams have attacked the perimeter and hit the outside perimeter where they're giving up massive chunk yardage. So if you're going to try to play in a phone booth with them, yes, run defense has been an issue. Playing in a phone booth has not been. So saying you're running the football is not the answer. Trying to get Tony and some of these guys to the perimeter is going to be the biggest thing here. So 2 big strengths versus 2 big weaknesses. Whoever prepares the most. And I got to be real with you. Something just makes me feel like Elko is going to come with some crazy shit defensively to confuse Carson Beck to be able to make him turn the ball over. That is where I lean my hat on, because Carson Beck also, I talked about Marcel Reed. Carson Beck is also susceptible to also turning the ball over too.
So that's another part about this. This is why I'm excited for this game, is that there's a lot of mirrored situations for both of these teams. Both quarterbacks have played at a high level in specific situations, specific areas throughout the year. Beck having a 74% completion percentage is nuts. But you've got 2 quarterbacks who both have thrown for 25 touchdowns and both have 10 interceptions. That's a lot of picks. That's a lot of picks to throw in a year. I think you bring up a really important part with this, is we kind of highlight this is why I like this game, and I'm excited to talk about it, is because I think that there's so many layers that we could just keep peeling back, and this is the latest one. Which quarterback protects the football better? Marcel Reed has had issues with turning the ball over the past couple of games. If he is deliberate and he is careful and he is playing within the system and not missing DBs that are floating around, and he connects with his guys, big plays all over the place. The same thing applies here with Carson Beck. Carson Beck reads what's ahead of him and doesn't try to take unnecessary risks. They're going to produce big plays as well. They both have really athletic quality receiver rooms. It's going to come down to, I wouldn't be shocked, Blake, if this game isn't simply decided off of who has the least turnovers. I feel like that is going to be
that's what's going to come down to.
Big piece in this. Yeah.
Let me hit on Carson Beck before we move on here.
Okay.
Mike Elko has been not good this year, but elite this year at getting after the quarterback on third down. Joe, they're number 1 in the country in third down defense and getting off the field on third down. They're not even giving up a third of the percentages on third down, and they're getting off the field. You talk about the turnovers there. Carson Beck has been very susceptible to, when he gets confused, making wrong decisions. For some reason, my gut is just screaming they're going to get after him with Cassius Howe and the boys, and he's going to turn the ball over a couple of times. Can Miami lean and play ball control is going to be a massive deal here, more than what people realize.
I do think that that's a good part with this. If you can get your ground game going and you slow the game down, you need to control the pace of this. You've got a 4-deep running back room with some big bodies in there. I know that you mentioned attacking the perimeter and using Tony for that. Slow the game down if you're able to maintain a lead and you're able to take a 3-point lead, whatever it is. slow it down, run the rock, prove the physicality that you have is there. And I think the same thing applies for A&M too, because like I don't know if Lev Moss has a chance of coming back.
I didn't look like it.
They've been predicting availability for players, by the way. I don't want to see anyone comment on this in a week and a half. I'm like, how dare you bring up this player that clearly isn't playing, the news that dropped a week after you did the preview. But the deal, though, with their health at running back, if you do have Lev Moss, Ruben Owens, and everything is good there, they can do the same exact thing. I'm very fired up for this game. I think it's going to be a total boxing match of a battle.
Should have been the primetime game. We shouldn't have Oregon and JMU at night.
Someone, I know that we're going to get to the super chats later. Dragon Jet made a really good point. The Saturday night primetime games for the NFL, I would much rather people watch the games when they're on.
I mean, I'm not an NFL guy.
Really? Yeah, I'm probably still gonna watch the G5 game, but like I like it when people watch the games. Because it's good for the sport.
Fair. All right, last one before we get out of here. Do you want to go to super chats or do you want to punt on Ole Miss Tulane? What do you want to do here?
No, let's get Ole Miss Tulane in, and then we'll get the super chats and we'll rip through them. This will be a long preview.
Joe, a long rematch. Another rematch here is Tulane wins the American Conference, and they're going up against Ole Miss in Oxford, who is replacing their head coach with Pete Golding. And I'm sure that's no one absolutely knew that Lane Kiffin wasn't there. That's not been in the news at all. But Ole Miss versus Tulane, part 2. What are your thoughts?
The line on FanDuel, 17.5 in favor of Ole Miss. Blake, look, I'm going to give Tulane some credit here before we tear them down. I thought that the way that they played in the American Conference Championship game, I thought that it was really respectable. I thought that they played their ass off. I thought that they looked relentless. They were going all out on every single play. They forced big turnovers. They had big hits. They put Drew Mestamaker in hell because they have a pretty solid front seven. They have an ability to completely disrupt and get after opposing quarterbacks. They've got 34 team sacks. They also have a really good G5 offensive line where they only have 10 on the year. All right, now we're done being nice. Blake, Ole Miss, I don't know what to expect from Ole Miss just from the sense of what does the offense look like with Charlie Weiss?
Charlie Weiss Jr. is still there. I mean, he called plays during the year, so.
Yeah, how different do things look, though, with no Lane Kiffin involved? How does the identity of this team look after Pete Golding took over? Blake, very simply, forget the X's and O's and the matchups and all that stuff. Sometimes games are emotional. Mm-hmm. After what transpired with the Lane Kiffin departure, this is a fan base and a team that is galvanized. It is motivated. I don't know what their future looks like in the playoff, but I can tell you right now, I think that they see an opponent that they can take all their frustration out on.
Oh, like no
doubt. That bit 17.5 point spread, I think they're going to cover. I think that they're going to dominate them, and I think that they're going to work them, and this game is going to be over at halftime. They are too much for Tulane to handle, as we saw the first time that they played.
Mm-hmm. Tulane has one of the worst secondaries in the country. It's what got them the first time and why this game was a 35-point blowout. Even though Ole Miss took the pedal off the metal in a massive way in the fourth quarter. They kept running the football. Tulane couldn't stop it. And I know Tulane this year, from a run defense standpoint, they're top 30 in the country in run defense, but you got obliterated in that game up front. Joe, their secondary is 121st in the country in passing yards allowed. They're getting torched. This isn't the team. The number 3 team in the country, Lane Kiffin or no Lane Kiffin, this team can throw the football and will go vertical on you quick, fast, and in a hurry. Charlie Weiss has been I'm sure Lane Kiffin gives a lot of suggestions. I'm not saying that Lane Kiffin clearly has no input on his own offense. However, this might be a bloodbath. Now, Tulane brings in Will Hall. He's going to be their new head coach. John Sumrall's over at Florida. You know, how does that dynamic go in and of itself? You know, because Sumrall's got a foot out the door. Will Hall's already in the building. They promoted him from within. Does Will Hall kind of run things now? Does Sumrall kind of oversee things? I don't know. But you have two, quote-unquote, lame duck head coaching situations. This is Pete Golding's first game. I got to ask you this question. How do we know how Pete Golding manages a game? How do we know? Do we have any clue? Does he tell Charlie Weiss that he wants to play a different style of how we do things offensively? Does he neuter Charlie Weiss and how he does things? I don't think he will, but you don't know that. Regardless of all of that, I think Tulane, listen, they're saying, well, I've been seeing a lot of them because I live next to them. Oh, we're in the playoff before LSU. Buddy, you got blown out when LSU got lost by 5 with a quarterback that had torn abdomen. Like, it's not the same. You're about to get blown out. This secondary is horrendous, and I don't want to hear it anymore. Now, you got 2 weeks. Maybe you can keep this thing close in the first half or first quarter for all I know. But, Joe, this is going to get ugly, and it's going to get ugly quickly because this secondary couldn't stop a bloody nose with a whole box of Tampax. They can't stop it. So, you said it was 16 and a half, right?
17 and a half. It already moved.
All right. Give me Ole Miss to win and give me Ole Miss to cover. Because you're going to do the same exact thing that you did to them the first time. Joe, they embarrassed them. And by the way, not only is the Ole Miss players going to want to take out frustration, what do you think the fans that have been through in the last month, that they've been calling this the biggest game in Mississippi football history, a playoff game at home? You're going into a nightmare, and you're going to get one. You're going to get one.
This is going to be a good old-fashioned ass whooping. Yeah, look, good for Tulane win their conference. Good for them for showing up. And if there was one G5 team that I think proved that they would have gotten in, it would have been Tulane. I know that we don't need to relitigate that whole conversation.
I mean, we say that, but yeah. Ole Miss didn't beat a team worse, didn't beat another team worse in the SEC that they put an ass whooping on Tulane on.
Yeah. Here's the just biggest problem with all this. I don't know what they do well enough that's going to help them sneak. Like, what is this is the issue that I have with both JMU and Tulane. What is either team's X factor? What is Tulane's X factor? They got a good offensive line. They didn't allow any sacks.
Run defense,
box score.
Run defense, JMU second in the country and Tulane's 30th.
But who's that against?
Well, again, the only reason Tulane's 30th is because they played Ole Miss and they got their asses whooped.
I made sure to check in with Ryan Roberts, who does a lot of digging into draft names, and I asked him, does Tulane or JMU have draft prospects? Either of them. And he said no. There's a kid on JMU we're going to talk about tomorrow that I think is a very talented player. But outside of that, no. I don't know who steps up to the plate. And I think that as we saw the first time that they played, it is going to be over pretty quick.
I completely agree. I don't know how to break this one down. I mean, maybe Ole Miss comes out flat because of all the turmoil, but
I don't think they will.
We thought they were going to come out. Hold on. We thought they were going to come out flat against Mississippi State. Remember, that was the whole talking point going into Mississippi State week. Oh, rivalry game. Lane Kiffin's going to LSU. Oh, they're not. They're going to. And they whipped their candy ass. They whipped their candy asses. I mean, they went full rock, attitude era. If you smell, they went the whole 9 yards, and it's going to happen again. So we wanted to include people, so here we go. Yeah. Alex with a $2 super chat says, Blake, when are we breaking down the Notre Dame game?
Alex, I'm telling you right now. Well, so first of all, you just, forget what I was going to say. You just asked, you wanted mod privileges. No, not after that comment. Not giving it to you after that comment. Thanks for the super chat, though.
He also says playing on TNT is far better than the CW, the quote-unquote Vampire Diaries. Hope Fravel comes in here still denying that TCU didn't drop in 2022. They didn't drop.
Yeah, apparently Fravel edits, who comes in here often, who's a Notre Dame guy. I didn't see that yesterday, so I guess apparently he was talking all kinds of crazy. Sad. You can't lie.
All right, we already did Dragons. Penn Jones with a $2 super chat says Notre Dame acting like spoiled brats.
let's pull up Elks's. It's also the same where he said, "How dare you not play a bowl game? It's we are God's gift to the football. We didn't get our way and we're throwing a fit." This is my big problem that I didn't bring up earlier with this whole thing. That framing of this is being projected onto them. That is an extreme framing of how they handled this. They simply said is they obviously did the whole we're picking our ball up and we're going home thing, but they removed themselves. Who gives a shit? It feels like a lot of people are going out of their way to crap on Notre Dame and to eviscerate them and to make it seem like that they're this gigantic villain in the sport. Alex, I'm sorry, but like framing it as if Notre Dame thinks that they're God's gift to the earth, that has not been anything that has been put out by Notre Dame media, by the Notre Dame team, by Pete Bavacqua, who spoke on the Dan Patrick show today, which I implore people to go listen to. That wasn't the mentality. It was bewilderment of how the process let them down, just like what I talked about during our segment yesterday.
Lions with a $5 super chat says Brian Kelly killed the Michigan opener for Notre Dame in series against Ohio State and Michigan State. How did he do that, Joe?
I actually don't know much about that. I guess it wouldn't surprise me though if there wasn't Brian Kelly didn't adjust something with the scheduling.
He's not over scheduling. Daniel with a $5 super chat says if the argument is you can't be penalized by losing your conference game, why get mad at Notre Dame for not playing a conference game? It's contradicting argument.
Losing.
It's not a contradicting argument because, again, they're 1-1 against Georgia. You didn't play. Like, if y'all want to keep going in here versus Alabama, I mean, Joe, Notre Dame's dumbest argument right now is trying to compare themselves to Alabama. It's their dumbest argument. I mean, I'm not trying to be rude. It is so dumb. You have the team that is 6th in strength of schedule and play more ranked opponents in the last month that you did all year. Stop.
I don't agree that Notre Dame's schedule was not harder than Alabama's. I don't agree with anyone who said, wait.
Missouri's and Navy are equals.
Okay. But at the same time, I don't think it's a dumb argument to say that Notre Dame and Alabama should have been compared to one another. Like I think that
should be compared
because here was the argument for Notre Dame though. Notre Dame was playing more complete football and was playing better football in the last month of the season compared to Alabama. Alabama has been a mess and they've been banged up.
Against who?
Obviously, the opponents that they had were different, but Blake, at the same time, we can't just lean into that when a team looks bad. Alabama has been messy, has been very messy.
With all due respect, you're going to look good against shitty teams.
They didn't look bad against Miami and Texas A&M.
Against Boston College, though. A 1-win team.
All right, we got more super chats.
I got to go. Yeah. Brian with a $10 super chat says Tulane and James Madison in the top 12 is DEI of college football. Absolutely ridiculous. Love, calls, contents. Keep up the great work.
Thanks for the comment, but don't react to the DEI thing. I'm
not going to. That's why I was moving on. D. Walker with a $20 super chat says move schedule 1 week. August 15th, exhibition games, LSU versus Southeastern, Ole Miss versus Citadel, week 0, bowl games. Or play bowl games with an SEC Big Ten Challenge, November 27-28 Conference Championship, Natty January 1st, coaching carousel portal 3 weeks, February 3rd signing day.
It's a lot of moving pieces to unpack, but I do think that that's probably the best way forward. Something like that.
Maybe. Penn Jones with a $2 super chat says Joe got Irish cream dripping from his mouth.
All right, there's got to be a way that we can filter these. There's got to be thanks for the $2, man.
Marcel says, rumor I've heard is that all week last week, Elko had the entire defense watching film on run defense on every single day.
Well, they're going to need it.
I bet he has. 4Caddy says, fixed bowl games make playoffs dynamic based on prior season final rank. I don't like that at all.
I did bring this up. Anyway, I'm bringing it up on this show. I do think that conferences need to have dynamic scheduling. And I think that what that means is that the final month of the season for your conference schedule, except for rivalries, the top teams should be forced to play each other instead of just keeping your schedule the way it is.
All
They
right,
should
do Notre Dame.
No, okay. Forget Notre Dame for a second. I'm just saying that it would fix the ACC issue. It would fix the SEC issue where the
SEC's got an issue.
No. Well, arguably, for the SEC's sake, you had A&M not facing any tough teams in. This is talking about for the SEC standings. This has nothing to do with the college football playoff. I'm saying for fixing the conference standings, if you have some form of dynamic scheduling, it allows for those teams to prove themselves.
11 of their 16 teams are in the top 15 in strength of schedule.
No, but you're missing what I'm saying, though.
No,
It has nothing to do with the playoff bracket. It has everything to do with the SEC standings.
But you got a whole season. It's not just November. Stephen Young says, how far do y'all think Ole Miss can make in the playoff? To Georgia?
Yeah, I think they're losing to Georgia. It already happened once.
Elk says, your own fans have said if Notre Dame joins the conference, it takes away what makes Notre Dame special.
That is, you're misframing that. It's not what makes Notre Dame special. Notre Dame has an advantage that they don't need to join a conference.
They might need to now. Marshall says Notre Dame's playoff argument every single year is we beat USC. Yay.
It's a little more complicated than that.
I mean, he's not wrong. It's what you did this year.
We beat A&M last year.
I mean, year one, Mike Elko in his game one. Congrats.
Game one of CJ Card. Okay, I'm not doing this. You got to go.
See you tomorrow. Peace.